Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551, and I am back with a video review. And for this review, we're going to be taking a look at excuse me, Ghost of Tsushima for the PlayStation 4. It's also available for those who have a PS4 Pro, though. And if you're interested in any gameplay footage, I'll have a link down in the description down below of this YouTube video, or you can click on the card that will appear up on this YouTube video. When it comes to the name Sucker Punch, though, a lot of PlayStation fans probably have heard that name before. This is a company that's famous for producing series like the Sly Cooper series that has been released on both the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3. Would love to see another entry if that ever happens, though. To the infamous series that has appeared on the PS3 and the PS4. But since then, the company has kind of stayed quiet for a bit, though, after the release of infamous Second Son, though. It wasn't until we started to learn that they were working on a brand new IP by the name of Ghost of Tsushima, though. And when a lot of the gameplay footage they started to show, it looked very impressive in terms of what they were showing, though. Some even said that some even went as far as saying that they kind of somewhat got a breath of a wild vibe out of it, which to some degree I could see some truth to that as well. So finally, with the game now coming out basically during near the end of the PlayStation 4's life cycle as we prepare for the PlayStation 5, which unfortunately is still hard to find, though I've been having a hard time trying to get a pre-order down for one of those. So I will say, for a game like this being released near the end of the PS4 life cycle, I would say it's a good final send-off to it, because I will say that Ghost of Tsushima, I will say, is definitely one of my favorite PS4 games that has been released for this generation. So why don't we get started with the pros and cons, and we'll start off first with the pros. And the first one I do want to talk about is the story. And I have to say, I really enjoy the story in Ghost of Tsushima. The story of basically trying to reclaim your land, being conquered by the Mongols and all. And it definitely gets you definitely get that feel of like some of the old samurai films and so forth, though. I never really watched a huge amount of those films, though, but I've seen some of the clips here every now and then, and you definitely get that kind of vibe from this, though. And I have to say, I gotta give Sucker Punch credit for really doing a good job with the story. I think it looks as though they did a lot of research on a lot of the old samurai films to get that feel to it for this game, and I think they really did a good job. The next I want to talk about is the visuals, and I have to say I am actually very impressed with the way the game looks. Granted, I'm playing this on a base PS4, not the PS4 Pro, though. But even on the base PS4, the game definitely looks really good. And I gotta give credit to Sucker Punch for how they were able to nail the visuals down as well. There is a feature, although I've yet to try, where you could basically play the game in entirely black and white, sort of like I mentioned before, like one of those like old black and white films, or like that's old black and white samurai films. So even having Japanese dialogues with English subtitles and all that stuff. I haven't tried it yet, but it is a nice little option that they added to the game. But even if you don't turn those options or just keep the English voice acting on, though, it's done very well, though. The visuals look really good in the game, and of course the voice acting, the sound, the music really also hit the right notes with it. And last but not least, I do want to talk about is the combat and the gameplay. And while the gameplay is open world and all that stuff, I feel as though this feels like an improvement over, say, the Assassin's Creed formula that Ubisoft is known for, though. While the Assassin's Creed games aren't necessarily bad, the open world approach feels like it's basically sort of like feels like filter, where this one, I just don't get that feeling at all. It feels satisfying to do a lot of these side quests, whether it's to improve your health or get experience and all that stuff. And combat is kind of fun. Combat is also enjoyable. It's not I won't go as far as calling it a hack and slash, or in a way like what Neo, like Koei Tecmo's Neo or Ninja Gaiden or Dynasty Warriors is in any way. It's not anywhere near that. Some of it requires some timing though, and or parrying to be exact, and changing different stance, which I've unlocked too. Some of those stance like can also be used against like much tougher warriors, to using items like the croaking, one of those like spear things, like the, apologize if I'm not getting the description correctly or anything like that, or smoke bomb. So there are different tactics where you have to block. You also have light and heavy attack, and you gotta time it right. Light attack, obviously, you could do some damage, where heavy attack could come in handy if you're trying to break an enemy's block or so forth. So from a combat standpoint, I will say the combat's good and the gameplay is good. And I will say this game certainly joins the rank with what God of War, which was released back in 2018 on the PS4 was, where it is possible to make a game that not only looks good, but also plays good. And Ghost of Tsushima, in my view, joins that rank as well. One last thing though is we also know that there are going to be a new multiplayer mode that Sucker Punch is going to bring over, which I will say as a side note, that's a nice addition though, but I personally would prefer if they bring out more single player or story content. I would love to see them do that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2, which are the cons. So we'll take a little break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our video review of Ghost of Tsushima for the PS4. So now that I gave you the pros, why don't we get started with the cons? And there are really only 2 cons that I've run into so far in my time with playing with Ghost of Tsushima. The first one we want to talk about is the combat though. Now I mentioned the pros about the combat, and I still think the combat is good and everything. I'm not saying it's terrible or awful though. But I will admit to some degree there is sort of a bit of a learning curve with some of the combat though. Excuse me. Some of it ranges from, parrying and sort of timing your blocks and all, and getting used to the, using your sword, light and heavy attack. And like I mentioned before, don't expect it to be in the same level as say like Koei Tecmo's like Neo or Ninja Gaiden or Dynasty Warriors or anything like that. To changing, different stances, to even the fact that there's really, at least based on my time with the game so far, no lock-on, which can make combat somewhat difficult at times, especially when you're dealing with like maybe multiple enemies and all that stuff. Also, there's also areas with like the bow and arrow, which you have to be kind of careful using them, because the further away you are from the target, when you shoot your bow or arrow, your arrow will fall down if it's like your target like really far away. So you gotta sort of aim perfect. You have to sort of aim well and all. It's not like the old Zelda games or anything like that. Your arrow's not going to shoot straight and all that stuff. So I will say the combat, while still enjoyable and all, there is somewhat of a learning curve, and that might turn some people off though. It hasn't turned me off or anything like that. I still think the combat is enjoyable, but I won't deny the fact there is somewhat of a learning curve with the combat in Ghost of Tsushima. And last but not least, the other con I want to point out is that I really wish that Sucker Punch had added a mini map in this game. Now, I get what Sucker Punch was trying to do and all that stuff, and they were basically using the touchpad, where basically you swipe the touchpad though. I think it's to the left, I'm not 100%, or to the right, I'm not 100% sure. And basically, whenever you set something on your map, like a Destiny and all that stuff, if you swipe it though, you'll see the wind blow at a certain direction, and that gives you a clue of which direction you need to go to your destination. I mean, it's a neat idea though, and I give credit for, I will give credit to Sucker Punch for actually using the touchpad for once, though, because we haven't seen a whole lot of developers use the touchpad on the PS4. It just acted as nothing more as a button. We saw something early in the PS4's life cycle, but for the most part, it's just acted as a button, to be exact. So I gotta give credit to Sucker Punch for trying something with it, though. You can also use it to basically play their flute and all that stuff. But at the same time, I kind of wish that they added the option to be able to use a mini map and all that stuff. I just prefer that approach over this. Again, I gotta give credit to Sucker Punch for what they were trying to do. I certainly don't hate what they were trying to do and all. I just, in my personal view and all that, I prefer a mini map, to be exact. Overall, I have to say I am definitely enjoying Ghost of Tsushima, though. I will say the story and the world that Sucker Punch created was really good, and obviously they did a lot of research in terms of making it as close to a lot of the old samurai films and so forth. And I will say the visuals and the combat and gameplay are definitely enjoyable, and I definitely stand behind my belief that this stands right next to games like God of War on the PS4, which do show that you can make a game that not only looks good, but also plays good. And while I do enjoy the combat, though, I won't deny the fact that there is a bit of a learning curve, and that might be an issue for some people out there, though. Again, not a huge issue for me, but for others, I could see that's becoming an issue. And while I understand what Sucker Punch was trying to do with the touchpad and all, and I still think it is a neat idea that they were trying to do and all, I still think it would have been nice if they added a mini map to this as well, especially for those who prefer to use the mini map instead of this, swipe with the touchpad to see the wind, and that should give you a clue of where your next destination is. Some will like this feature, some may not, though, but it is what it is. But despite those two cons, though, I still think Ghost of Tsushima is definitely a recommendation, especially for those who own a PS4. And I do think it is a good final send-off for the PS4 as we enter into the PS5 generation. And it does make you kind of wonder what Sucker Punch will be doing for the PS5. Hopefully we don't have to wait an entire generation like we did with the PS4 for Sucker Punch to release a game, but we'll have to wait and see. But overall, I gotta say, I am enjoying Ghost of Tsushima. It's definitely a must-own, especially for those who own a PS4, though, and it looks good even on a base PS4, to be exact, though. And it's a great way as a final send-off to the PlayStation 4 as we prepare to enter into the PlayStation 5 generation. Okay, this concludes my video review of Ghost of Tsushima for the PlayStation 4. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Ghost of Tsushima for the PlayStation 4? Do you think it is a good game? Do you think it was worth the long wait for Sucker Punch to finally release it? Do you think they should have released it earlier, or do you think it was okay to release it during the end near the end of the PS4's life cycle? Do you think the story and the visuals are good, or do you think they're bad? Do you think the combat and gameplay is enjoyable in any way? Do you think there is a bit of a learning curve to the combat, or you don't think there is a learning curve at all? And do you think a mini-map would have been a better option for them to use, or do you think this touchpad approach that they did to this game was, you know what, that works just fine whatsoever? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you like this video, I hope you hit the like button on this YouTube video. I would pretty appreciate it. And I do hope you subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal Me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this YouTube video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!